Hello, everybody. My name is Juan. This is Life Unlocked. Today, I'm going to be talking about my personal experiences about being a preteen at 11 years old and what it's like to be shot at and what it feels like. Experience it on a personal level. But first of all, I want to introduce myself and tell you guys a little bit about myself. I grew up in and out of the system, institutionalized technically is what you would call it. I went to juvenile detention, rehab, things like that, and I can tell you personally that some of the things that happen don't aren't released or wouldn't be told outside of the facility, like abuse, sexual abuse, things like that, things like treating juveniles a certain way that you guys wouldn't expect. I would say, bringing awareness to assault towards youth from people that are supposed to be there and be their guardians, and watch over them. Um, I'm also going to be talking about substance abuse, personal experiences that I had while I was incarcerated, what it was like for me, my first, couple days being in juvenile detention, things like being incarcerated in, what is it, a correctional facility for juveniles at the age of 18, well, 17 going on to 18, and being released after my 18th birthday on juvenile parole, what it's like, the ins and outs of juvenile parole, probation, what's the difference, things like that. And yeah, like I said, that's what I would like to bring awareness to. I would like to start off with, like I said, what it's like to get shot. Um, like I said, the first time it happened for me, I was 11 years old. It was a drive-by shooting, and a guy completely shot at my house. I still remember the exact time. Actually, it was 9:46 p.m. I was playing my PSP. At that time, it was, let me see, 2011. PSPs were still popular at the time. I had gotten it for Christmas. I remember the next morning because I stayed up pretty late. Playing it as a kid, and I was like, I don't know, staying up, being a kid, playing video games. And I remember putting my PSP on the windowsill, and I actually watched this guy walk to his house and get into his car. And I laid back down, and I hear a car pull up out front. And I remember I was looking up at my ceiling. I was like, all of a sudden, hearing something that sounded pretty much like a nail gun hitting drywall, and that was followed by sounds of something just clinking onto the floor, like in drywall, like if something hits and it impacts something, and before it was able to go through and penetrate the other wall, you just hear it fall, or just different things like that, or going through those pieces of wall in the front of the house and going into the other drywall and falling down and clinking into the wood onto the ground. um the guy that actually had shot up my house lived 2 houses away, and what I remember was a semi-automatic being like fired, and I remember just loud bangs and everything, and I just remember glass flying out my window because, like I said, I was laying in my bed, my windowsill's right next to my head, and I just remember a lot of glass falling down, and from there I remember just rolling, just rolling onto my stomach, and I literally just plopped onto my ground, and I just remember crawling into the hallway. And from there, I remember seeing one of my sisters that had special needs, and my other sister with her boyfriend, and him pulling my sister with special needs by her arm and telling me to come and follow him while I was crawling on the ground. And he made us crawl down into the back of the house, and we crawled into my mom's room and laid down like straight back to back, like next to the bed, and they flopped the bed over us and like kind of like got on top of us to make sure that no bullets hit me and my two sisters. And at the time, my sister with the boyfriend was pregnant with my first nephew at the time, who is actually like 8 years old, 9 years old now at the moment. Um, I was just, like I said, 11 years old, so I didn't really know what was going on at the time. But what I found out later was that my sister's boyfriend and my two older brothers went to this guy's house that shot our house up and killed his dog and threw it through their kitchen window. That guy's girlfriend was at home at the time and found, the dog, so she called her boyfriend who was out at the bar, told him what happened, and he went and grabbed his M16 and shot at my house to get revenge. And this sounds probably, like really crazy, and it is, but the reservation is like, very lawless at the point. Like, at this point, there's no police presence. People take the law into their own hands, and it doesn't excuse what happens, and, it's not right. But I'm trying to paint this picture for people to understand, there's still these communities where people are still impoverished, like in poverty, and, are left there and stuck still in a community where they can't make a living or a good income to even get out. And like I said, that's what I'm trying to make awareness to. And a reservation, if you guys don't know, is a Native American, like federal land for Native Americans that they were forced on a long time ago, back in the maybe 1800s, and this is like the land like technically they got left. And so I had grown up there from 4 until I was about 11, once I started getting incarcerated and going in and out of the juvenile justice system and being sent to different placements. And so, like I said, the cops, they weren't, like, we didn't really have cops, but anyway, since there was only one entrance to the reservation, I remember that night earlier, my brothers were having me look out the front of my window, and they were telling me to watch out for police officers, and other type of cars. They were specific in, like, I guess, certain cars that I needed to identify and tell them. And so at the time, I'm 11 years old, so I don't really know what's going on, and to me it's just like, oh, okay, cool, like my brothers want me to help them out, I'm gonna help them out. So I ended up doing that, and that's also why I guess that person, that's why, oh, let me see, that's why they had me watch out, was so they could go do that and hurt those people's animal, and be able to do that. So while they were doing all that slimy ass shit, I was, like I said, laying on my bed, having this shit happen to me. And to find out, like, I rolled, like I said, rolled over, went to my mom's, like, room and everything. We ended up jumping out the bed after all of that stuff because they thought that the person had gotten into the house because our kitchen window had shattered, and so had our living room window. They had went from the back of the house and grabbed the weight set, like, like the weight bars and everything. I remember, I guess they threw it into the living room window and, like, kicked down our flat screen TV and all this other stuff. Um, so I remember jumping out my mom's bedroom window, and I remember I was only in boxers, and at the time, it was still icy outside. It was still like negative, like, not negative, like maybe like 14, 15 degrees maybe, like getting very like below freezing, and there being ice in the desert because it's like straight desert sagebrush and all that stuff. And the only other thing I had was a blanket wrapped around like my shoulders, and we hid in the sagebrush until the shooting had stopped. And after the guy had left, we went back into the house and went into my sister's room and barricaded ourselves in there. And one of my brothers went to sleep in the closet. I don't really remember what happened to the other one. I remember literally one tribal police officer. So to explain the police officers, like from county police officer to a tribal police officer or Bureau of Indian, like BIA, Bureau of Indian Affairs police officer, like that's a tribal cop. Um, Tribal police have jurisdiction over reservations, like literally only like reservations, unless it's a Native American person that's from a reservation that they look after. Then they have to be involved because then, like it's not somebody from the county. Like to say like a act was committed on a Native American reservation, regular cops or county cops like say, hmm, we'll just use Las Vegas Police Department as a, like they wouldn't be able to come onto a reservation as in like, it would say like something Native American police officer, whatever that works for the tribe would be able to, and they would be only that would be their own jurisdiction. As we have our own like jail, like court system and everything, and all of that other stuff. And like I said, we only had one cop at the time, and his name I don't even really remember his name, and it's really irrelevant. But I remember him kicking our front door in and coming down the hallway into my sister's room and remembering her barricading the door and the windows and everything in case something ever happened again. And he had kicked in her door and like was flashing the light in his gun at everybody, and I remember like just the like flashlight hitting me in my face and him asking if everybody was okay and all that other stuff. And I remember like other police coming and like the FBI coming a couple hours later to investigate this to find out they said that 176 M16 bullets and 9mm pistol bullets had went through my room alone, like in my window, and they were like surprised that we were able to get out in time, like to survive. And this guy ended up being trialed for 9 months in trial and getting 9 months in federal prison, and federal prison for 9 months, and he got released afterwards, right? But he was never able to be back around like us or anything like that. And to be honest, looking back at this experience, it was fucking insane to be exposed to that much violence that young. It really messed me up, like um I'm not gonna lie, it kind of put me into a down spiral, you could say, and it influenced me to do a lot of other things too. And this story right here had like not I'm not gonna say caused me to cause my second commitment, which caused me to go to juvenile detention for the second time for some serious charges. And I'm not gonna say that like that is the reason I did it, but I'm saying yeah, like as a kid I didn't know no better growing up in a way like where your family is, like gang related, very ruthless, and years later to find out that my father, is a very bad person that's been to prison too, and you know, things like that. It's just like that. I don't know. I guess a lot of things were put into perspective for me. Like knowing that I didn't grow up like normal people grew up due to the fact that I knew like about all the like some of the dysfunction in my family and thinking like that it was socially acceptable because like I said, growing up this way, people think this is the normal thing to like be around. Like going to school, I would like get in trouble in kindergarten because I would always be violent towards my other peers, and I never knew that like this isn't bad because my brothers would be like, oh yeah, you need to beat people up and blah 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 and all this other stuff, and I'm not gonna lie, at like 8 9 years old, like you should be living a normal childhood, going to the park, playing video games, having, friends, and, just, going to school, worrying about school, having school, like, friends at school, all other, different things. And for me, it was different. It was more like, all right, you need to learn this, you need to learn that, um, like I needed to learn like gang politics, or how to like sell drugs, or um, what are the other things that I was taught, like just a lot of different things. And like I said, for somebody at the age that I was when I was taught these things, somebody like that age shouldn't have to be told that, like they shouldn't have to be like influenced that way by people that are supposed to, be their guardians, their parent, their, role model, their parent figure, like that just causes another cycle of, another like messed up, like not really messed up, but somebody that's going to have problems in the future. And for me, yeah, it had caused a lot of problems, like, like PTSD, different things like that, right? Like different disorders, different, like social, let me see, like being social with people, like for me, it was hard due to the fact that, yeah, being incarcerated, being isolated from a lot of people for a very, like, long and extensive period of time, was normal for me. So, like, being incarcerated for a year and a half straight, and then being released into like like the normal world, and being around so many different people and so many different parts of like like different communities, it's overwhelming. And for me, like I'm not gonna lie, I was scared. I was, for me it was, I guess, yeah, like overwhelming, anxious. And like I said, like that's why I wanted to talk about this and give you guys awareness about like the things that happen to some people that people don't know about, and like how it affects some people, and how people, like, some people overcome these things. And like I wanted to tell my story and tell people how I overcame it, and like my aspect on these things, and the things that I experienced personally as a kid, as a youth, like growing up, or as a teenager, like stuff like that. And that's all I really want to bring awareness to. And, like, I want to thank everybody for listening to my story. And if you really appreciate it, please like. And if you really liked it, please subscribe for more. And, like, I really appreciate this. And, I'm just trying to, like, spread the word, and, like, show other people, like, they're not alone in this situation that, like, causes people to go back down like a downward spiral, or into addiction, or to reoffend, or like, I just want people to realize that, like, they're not alone, because a lot of people, like, go through this. And like, they do struggle through this. Like, I struggled for a very long time through a lot of this stuff, like, for years. It took me to finally realize, the system is fucked up. And once you get into it, it's kind of hard to get out. And I guess it took me 2 commitments to the state to finally realize that that was enough for me to actually pull my shit together. And you know um, and get, like, like a GED and different things like that, and to achieve, normal people things, like getting a driver's license. I never thought I would get a driver's license, or a car, or even get my GED, a piece of paper, a diploma, like, um, the beginning of this year, I had applied for community college, and had gotten, like, started going to school. And for that, like, I never even expected that I would even get into school, or go to college, or even further my education. And let alone do that, I went and majored in something that my family's something highly against, like criminal justice and criminology. Like, I hear of a lot of people where it's not that common for somebody to come out of a justice system or out of, like being incarcerated or, being a felon or anything like that and changing their life and trying to help somebody else. Like for me, it was criminal justice to change and help other juvenile kids at their core and help them change before they get into the, adult system and they're lost forever or, they're stuck. And like I said, that's what I'm trying to get to, and that's what message I am trying to spread so everybody is aware of that. Like I said, I hope everybody listens or, enjoys this video, and, like, I appreciate it.